Go. Hey everyone, welcome to, where are we, session 7. We had a slight delay of a couple of days, but we are here. This is our Way of Ascent, the Way of Ascent meditation series. And what we're doing, I should turn on my share screen here. Okay, here we go. Current slide. Boom, there we go. Whoops. It's acting funny. There we are. All right, we're on the right screen. So what we're doing, we're going over the months from February to May, 4 weeks per month, and the 5th week in April, which we haven't quite figured out what we're going to do yet. But we are going month by month on different themes, a different path, building precept upon precept. This is not a course or anything that we've done before. We're winging this from week to week. Luke and I meet during the week on Zoom 3-4 times a week to figure out what we're going to talk about next. We do have an outline, a path that we're following, which I'm going to get into here in a moment. But we began in February, and now we're halfway through March. This is the 7th of 16 Zoom rooms that we're doing. We are recording these. The first one didn't come out good, unfortunately, but that's okay because we were still trying to just figure out how to get everything to work. And but the rest we have been putting on a website and we'll continue to do so. So look in the group for the link for that. Encourage people to invite friends. We do kind of quick review of things. It's pretty much you can jump into it almost along the way, but it is a lot helpful to go through the videos if you haven't been through the sessions already. The way we normally do this is Luke and I are doing this together. I take the first half of the evening. Luke takes the second half. My half is more focused on bringing in concepts, new ones, and adding to them each week. So it's more of the that learning type side, the things that relate to meditation and all, and what it connects to. And Luke is more on the, I'm kind of like the left and he's kind of like the right. He's more on the practical or imaginative side of actually bringing these things toward a meditation, a group meditation, and then leading, people coming in here. Resume share. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was just trying to let somebody in the room there. Okay, so that's the way we work it. I take the first half, Luke takes the second. So it's a little bit of educational stuff for the first 20 some odd minutes, and then Luke goes from there. The path that we're following, and hopefully you guys all see the calendar in front of you right now. I should have checked to make sure that we are sharing correctly. I need to look at my chat box, which closed for some reason. I see, Scott, that was a yes to my question, I hope. Okay, so I'm assuming you guys are looking at, otherwise speak up, looking at the calendar, which we started in February. And what we're doing is we're going through something called the levels of the soul, which I'll explain a little bit more of in a minute. And if you've done the Omer count, it's a little bit like that in the sense that there are several what are called levels of the soul or levels of soul consciousness. And each one of those, though, is not completely independent. Every one of the levels of the soul has some connection to each one. So when we're looking at the first level of the soul called the Nefesh, and the second is the Ruach, and the third is Neshama. So we'll look at the first month, we're looking at the Nefesh, but we're looking at each aspect within it. So the Nefesh within the Nefesh, the Ruach within the Nefesh, Neshama within the Nefesh, and so on, which gives you the complete, better understanding of what's involved. So here we are in March, as you can see. And each of the months has a general theme to it. The first month of Nefesh was awareness. So the Nefesh level is the very basic level of the soul. All human beings are going around functioning at that level. If you didn't have a Nefesh, you wouldn't be functioning. And it's not necessarily connected to the spiritual realm in terms of people thinking about it, using our minds. Of course, everything is connected to God and spirituality in some other way. But people living at that level of life are not too concerned, if at all, about spiritual matters. The Ruach level of the soul is when something kicks in, something sparks in your mind and says, there's probably more to life than just, making a few bucks, having a couple of, fun times, and then you die. And when people start contemplating about spiritual matters, this is when you're getting into that Ruach level of the soul. But there's a lot of things that are barriers. There's a lot of things pulling against us, etc. So it's called a level of struggle, and we'll show more. Again, we'll repeat some of the stuff and bring some new things in tonight regarding that. So the rock level is where you can take 3 steps forward and 2 back, or just give up, walk away, and come back later. It's kind of where we spend some amount of time, and not necessarily that it just goes away at once, as we mentioned earlier. Each one of these phases kind of repeats. It goes through all the levels, even as we go higher and higher, so to speak. The 3rd level of the soul, the Neshama, that's where you get kind of, you could say, past the struggles, at least to some extent, and make a real connection with Hashem. And that's the level of the mind, of the intellect, of Torah study. Whereas the level of struggle that we spoke of before, the Ruach, is more the level of emotion. And then finally, the 4th level of the soul that we deal with is a Chaya, which is life, which is the concept outside of creation, still within existence, where we don't really access this directly in life. We can connect to it. I'll show more about that in a second. This is a level where it's not just us, but we're connecting to other people as one humanity created in the image of God. So this is the path we're going through. We went through the level of Ruach and awareness, the physical level, in February. We're now just getting past the midpoint of struggle and emotion and prayer, which is a big focus this month too. Whereas next, the 3rd level is more concerned with Torah study, and the first beginning was with mitzvot, just day-to-day good actions. Okay, so I'm trying to get my button to work here on this. There we go. Okay, so this is our chart that we have used every week, and we introduce new things related to it. And if you haven't seen this before, the chart on the left has 2 vertical columns. And the column on the left is simply how things played out from Hashem down to us in terms of the creation, the original creation, where there was a state of pre-existence where nothing was there. There was nothing except God that we can't even define. And then out of that came a separate existence, something other than God, which is the level called existence. It's the level closest to that, what we can't understand. And from there, and that's just the very beginning of the Bible, where you see in the beginning, God created, those words up to created, in the beginning, Elohim, that's relating to this just prior to creation coming into reality. Because the next word, in the beginning, God created, is bara, which is beria, which is creation, which is the first level of creation, is called creation, and everything beneath it. So that's the world of the heavenly realm, it's very it's like not symbolic, but it's like the heavenly temple, the heavenly menorah. These things aren't physical objects in any way. It's very conceptual. Okay, and it's where the higher powers that God created, that more or less you could say supervise and run things within creation. And then beneath that is the angelic world, the world of angels, which are messengers that go up and down. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a minute. And then down at the very end of the process, finally comes physical creation, the world we live in, which of course does have dimensions of spirituality to it. But we're primarily living in the world of the 5 senses and our thoughts and our emotions and all of that stuff. So that's how everything came down from Hashem, the unknowable aspect of Hashem that we call things like Ein Sof, because we really don't have a name for it. Ein Sof just means without end, the infinite, if you will. And that's how everything came down to us. But the advantages we've talked about in the past, the advantage of Torah-based meditation is that it's not just close your eyes and use your imagination and see what flows in. You actually have guideline and a path to follow, because the path down for this creation from God down to us is also our path back from us back up to God. And this is explained in terms of our souls, which is what connects back to God. But there are levels of the soul that correspond to these levels of existence that came about. So everything in the left-hand column that you see coming down from God down to us, so to speak, is our path back from us back to God. And there are parallels between these levels. So just like our world is very physical, the nefesh level of the soul is very physical related. The angelic world with everything going up and down and that whole mixed bag is very much parallels the level of Ruach, which is our level of struggle and trying to connect. And then above that, the world of the heavenlies, where you're actually dealing with the heavenly temple and all that. relates to the neshama level, and so on. So the bottom three, as I said a few minutes ago, relate to creation, which is the world of the heavenly realm. This is not the planets or anything like that. That's all down in the bottom level. Anything physical that you can see, be it with a telescope or a microscope, is our physical existence, this level. It's called Asiya, the world of things being made or making. So where was I here? All right, so the bottom three, as I mentioned, in terms of creation, the world that God created with these heavenly entities, and then the angelic world in between, and then us down below, is considered a unit. It's considered the three levels that are within what is creation per se, and corresponding to that, the three lower levels of the soul to the right of those are considered like a unit, and that these are the three that we deal with in our day-to-day existence and life. We don't directly deal with the fourth level of Chaya because it's outside of creation, but we can. There is a point of connection with it, which we'll talk about more either tonight or definitely next week. So those three are kind of a unit. That's something to keep in mind. And within that unit, you have the upper realm, you have down where we live most of our lives, and then you have that intermediate realm in between the two. So that's kind of like the schematic, if you're an electronics person, or the blueprint, or whatever you want to call it, of how things are structured, both in terms of how everything came into existence and what our path back up to connect deeper and to God, to Hashem, on a day-to-day basis. There's a couple of concepts here real quick. That is one of, one flows down into the next in terms of how things were created, but one also flows up into the next in terms of how we advance, how we make corrections and better understanding that gets us to the next level. And then we kind of start a process again of understanding things at that level and so on. So you can't just jump ahead, skip ahead. As the Torah says, precept upon precept, you have to do the work, you have to learn correctly, and you move ahead that way in terms of learning how God set things up within us and how to connect back to him. So this is all based in the Torah, of course, over, well, you could say 3,300 years now. And one of the concepts here, of course, is that of proximity. The further away the particular world or level of the soul is, on our chart here, it's the further away you can say from God, although God is everywhere, because we do have to take the steps to rectify things and reconnect. So that's a concept to understand, that our primary level of existence when we start out in this world is at the very bottom. It's at that lowest world, and we need to connect to the next one to move forward. So this world is very much a world of concealment. We look around, most people aren't even thinking about God. They're not talking about God. It's nothing, When we get into the next level, up into the Ruach level, which corresponds to the angelic world, now we're giving some thought to these things. So they go from being concealed completely in our world to being kind of like, well, we're trying to figure it out. It's all mixed up. And only in at least the third level is where things start to become clear in terms of real definition and understanding these things. So that's the quote on the left there that mentions the three lower levels there as being a single unit. And an important point is that the highest of these three, the neshama level of the soul, because it's closest to Hashem, this is the one that can receive what's called the Or Ein Sof, or the light of Ein Sof. So that hidden highest level called Ein Sof, then there's something called the light of Ein Sof, which is in that second level, which is the imminent aspect of the creation. So that's the light of Ein Sof, and then creation is below that. So when you're at that neshama level, you are in proximity, you could say, of the light of Ein Sof at the level above. And that's a whole other thing when you get to that level. So that's why it's the level of connection or connectivity. I have a couple of little things in the columns here that are interesting. This idea of these three lower levels and how they're the three that we function in our soul in our lifetime, and they're also the three levels of creation. If you look on the far right, one of the first places they appear, I have to move some things on my screen here. One of the first places they appear in kind of a metaphor is in 128 of Genesis, where God speaking to Adam, the singular Adam, which is a combined masculine feminine entity still at that point, and tells Adam to go out. And I don't have the whole quote in front of me. Maybe I do here. Oh yeah, I do. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it. That's important. Subdue it. What does that mean? Subdue it. And he says, rule over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the sky, and the beasts that tread on the earth. And Kabbalistically, these levels of parallel a lot of things, these levels on the chart, including the elements. So the level of earth is, of course, the base one, the bottom one, our world. And then the level of water is, because it's water and it's fluid, and is the level of Ruach, the level of the angelic world. And then the air level is the level of Neshama. And the one above that we're not talking about right now would be the fourth element of fire, right? And that's the level above at Chaya. So it's interesting that these three things show up metaphorically at the beginning of Genesis 1:28 in terms of subduing them, if you think of it a little differently here. And then later on in Deuteronomy 6:5, again, we see these three come up. We're right after the Shema proper. It says you'll love the Lord your God in three ways. And it talks about your heart. It says nefesh, your soul, but it's understood as the mind, and then your strength. And so you see these three aspects come in again, because the three levels of the soul that we're dealing with, starting at the bottom, have to do with our physicality, our means, our money, our time, things like that, our heart, which is prayer, and our mind, soul, which is Torah. But what's interesting with both of these, and there's a third one I'm going to show you in a minute, is both of these verses don't start with the bottom level and they don't start with the top level. Both of them start in the middle. Genesis 1:28 begins with the fish of the sea. Deuteronomy 6:5 begins with your heart. And these are both at that level of emotion, of the struggle. So that's interesting, because that shows up in a few places in the Tanakh, and this is two of them. Let me see, I think I'm going to go on to my next slide here. Okay. Another place that we see these levels show up is in Genesis 28, where Jacob has the dream of the ladder. If you're familiar with this, you can go look it up if you want, but basically he lies down and he immediately gets a vision of a ladder that begins down on the ground near him and goes up to the heavens, and the angels are going up and down. And above that is the aspect of God that he can understand. So there's your four levels that are within existence again. This is one of the more clear representations of it. So what we have here, though, is another interesting phenomena, that the dream doesn't say, oh, there was heaven and then he saw a ladder. No, it starts again with the middle. It starts right with the ladder. He saw a ladder and then the bottom and the top. So just like the other two verses, that middle realm, the angelic realm, the realm full of all kinds of movement up and down, a mixed realm of angels and other creatures, is the one that's addressed first in this verse as well, which is interesting. So the person down at the bottom level, as we said earlier, where Jacob's like on the ground, doesn't really know what's going on. And the person in the middle is struggling, going back and forth, up and down, kind of like the angels are acting. But it's only at that upper level of Neshama that you're really making the connection to God above, like in Jacob's dream. What's interesting here too is the angels are moving up and down, back and forth. So there's a destination at the bottom and the destination at the top. And angels don't have, by definition, don't have free will. They're not just doing what they want. They're always doing something. The word means messengers. And that's not just a messenger with like a letter or something. It's someone that's moving something from point A to point B. And that can be a message. It can be a judgment. It can be a blessing. It can be all kinds of things. Sometimes it's an action. Sometimes it's a thought. So you have this idea here that when Hashem is decreeing something or doing something, he'll use the angelic realm to bring it down. So that's the messenger aspect where it's coming down to us. Conversely, it also goes back up, which would have to do with our prayers, our actions, could be good and bad, going back up. So you have a cycle here. But the interesting thing here is that the angelic realm doesn't just do things on its own. It's provoked either from what's above or what's below. And that's what stimulates the cycle. And the same, as we'll discuss a little bit tonight and going into the future also, is that a lot of the emotional things that we have to deal with all the time don't have a mind of their own either. They're either provoked by something physical or something in our minds. And so there's another great parallel there in terms of what we're discussing tonight a little bit. Let's see here. Gotta move some things out of my screen here. Okay. There's a quote on the screen. I just moved a window out of the way. Torah studies knowledge, but prayer is more direct connection to Hashem. Yeah, okay. So Torah study is, of course, technically on our ladder above, but if you notice, all the examples we've had so far always start with the middle realm, that ladder realm itself, which is the realm of emotion and prayer. And that's the most immediate, sharpest, intense, deep connection, more than a mitzvot, more than Torah study in terms of real intimacy. And we know that emotions can just take over everything, right, in our own world. So it's a very powerful realm. And we'll show a little bit more Kabbalistically what that means in a bit in terms of all that's involved. Give me 1 second while I grab a sip of my wonderful drink here. Okay. So I'm going a little longer than usual here tonight because there's a few things that we're setting up. Getting into the where we are tonight, which is the Neshama level of Ruach. Okay, so we're at the Ruach level all month. We're looking at each one within Ruach. So this is basically the intellect level of Neshama within the emotional attribute, emotional soul level of Ruach. So it's intellect within emotion, which is also Torah study as that impacts prayer, which is something to think about. Praying is awfully good, but if you know more about what you're praying about, what's out there, that can enhance and sharpen your prayer. So this is kind of where we're at tonight, is the Neshama within the Ruach. Now, all of these emanations that we call Sephirot, these are godly emanations. If you're not familiar with it, we'll have to discuss that later, but assuming you might be a little bit, they all exist at each of these levels of existence. However, they also exist in another capacity that certain ones directly correlate with certain levels of existence, if I said that right. So that level of Malkut associates with our level of Nefesh, soul level Nefesh, and the world of Asiyah, physical world. And then I'm going to jump up ahead there, Neshama. We're going to go up to there, or is that level above the ladder, so to speak. And this level of Neshama connects with the intellect and Torah study. And then Chokhmah is, as we've said, it's kind of outside of creation, but still within existence, where everything connects in a unity. Chokhmah is very singular. So these particular emanations have relationships to each level of the soul. We'll stick with the soul for now. But there's a whole different aspect when it comes to that middle realm, the realm of the ladder, the realm of emotion, the realm of prayer and struggle, in that there's six emanations that relate to that level. So all the others have a 1-to-1 correlation, but there are 6 emanations that relate to this level that we're dealing with this month. And this is really the battle zone. This is where a lot of the work is done and has to be done when we do the Omer count, which starts in 2 weeks. We're dealing with 7 weeks, which is these 6, and then Malkut below, which is kind of all right, let's put it all together type of week, But the main battle is the first 6 weeks. The main battle is these 6 Sephirot. And as, if you weren't here earlier, I was talking with Luke, we're going to introduce some interesting aspects to all of this in the weeks ahead. We're even going to go into a little bit into some non-religious stuff, namely Stephen Covey's, if you're not familiar with the author, Stephen Covey did a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We're going to look at that because it's actually completely resembles what we're talking about. He has the same idea that the 6 that we work with all the time, and the 7th one is just sharp. He calls it sharpening your saw, just getting into practice. So it's an interesting parallel there too. Okay. So the main point here is that there are these 6 aspects. It's complex, as you can see. There's all kinds of interrelationships between the 6. This resembles that whole realm of the ladder in Jacob's dream, the whole idea that it's actually called the mixed realm. This is that intermediate or intermediary, whatever, the middle spiritual realm that is not the higher realm of the heavenly throne room and all of that. This is the realm that, although we have to deal with this is the main area we deal with and focus on and work on. It's also the world of the realm that the Torah says not to go fool around in a different capacity. This would be the realm of divination, of witchcraft, of those kind of things, is when you're tapping into that mixed realm, which is not kosher. Okay, this is the realm that the pharaohs, Egyptians, magicians operated out of. Okay, they operated out of this realm, which is why Moshe, coming from a higher level, was able to subdue what they were doing, because he was operating at the level of Neshama or Bina above them. So while this is not something you fool around with, it is also simultaneously the level that we are working on in our own selves to make corrections and improve and connect to the higher levels. So as we said earlier, it's a step at a time, precept upon precept. And the first month we talked about awareness. Okay, we're aware. And this month we're talking about struggle, which is a whole different thing. All right, so we're almost on my last slide here. And the last slide is the doozy. So okay, there's a quote on the screen I almost forgot to read. The more consuming the thought process becomes, the more overwhelming in my mind, the more I lose part of my awareness that my mind is separate from it. The more I identify with it, I don't stop it because I'm not aware that it's going, because there's no me to be aware. I'm consumed by the noise in my head. There's no you to turn it off. The you is lost under the avalanche of negativity. So the point here we're going to get to in a minute is getting caught up in this emotional world and in the emotional level, and trying to deal with everything just within there is a frustrating and fruitless process. And eventually it consumes you, which is what Rabbi Katz is saying. And there's no more you. You don't even know how to get out of it. You don't even know you're in it, because there's no more you to deal with appropriately. So one of the things we're going to start introducing a little bit tonight and going forward, because it's so important, is this aspect of getting through this so we can get to the higher level of Neshama, which is the level of the Torah study of the intellect, which gives us the help we need, the control we need over the emotional realm. As we see in the world around us, there's a lot of people that are very emotionally driven. They're letting emotions overrun intellect and logic and things like that. And that's a natural response, unfortunately, and it feeds upon itself. Daniel Katz, Rabbi Katz, does a lot of great stuff in this area, and we'll hopefully introduce more of his things down the road too, including tonight, we plan to. Let's see, one more slide for me. Here we go. So we're looking again back to the tree of life diagram on the right. And the idea here, of course, as I just mentioned, that there are these attributes, the 6 that we work on, and then of course the 7th below that, which is part of all that whole equation. These are, by the way, known as the groom and the bride. The groom above the 6 and the bride is the 7th. And when you get these, was it ducks in a row? Is that the expression? When you get these things working properly, when you're getting a proper understanding and connecting these things in a Torah-based way, you're what's called uniting the bride and the groom together, which is kind of why we're here on this planet, is to bring all this together. Because when all this comes together, then the path is clear to move further into deeper and better things with Hashem. So the idea here is that, as I mentioned earlier, there are certain Sephirot that are strongly tied to these levels, and the level of Neshama that we're talking about is also the level of Bina above. Bina is called understanding. It's considered to be on the feminine side. So the Malkut and Bina are considered to be more feminine worlds, which does not mean anything like it does in our regular vocabulary. That's a discussion we can have another night. And the intermediary world there of Ruach that we're dealing with is a masculine world, as is Chokhmah above that. A good definition of Bina would be like objective analytical thinking. So Bina is the feminine side, like the mother, and Chokhmah, the father. On the other side, I love my Disney vacation example is that dad at Chokhmah comes home and says, "Hey family, we're going to Disney World." And the kids all jump on the couch and yell, "Hooray." They're all excited and happy. And dad's like, "Great job, right? We're all set." And mom jumps in and goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on a second. We got to figure out schedules. We got to figure out budgets. We got to figure out the pets. We got to figure out groceries. We got to figure out packing. We got to figure out supplies, and all this stuff." So Bina is objective analytical thinking that breaks the things down from that singularity of Chokhmah, dad coming home saying Disney. That's all he's thinking about, Disney, right? It's all there. It's all be good. And the feminine side, Bina, breaks it down. So Bina has that relationship going back to where it came from Chokhmah. It also has a relationship to the 7 emanations below, in terms of it connecting with all of them and bringing that analytical, Torah-based intellect, thought to the emotional realm below and the physical realm even below that. So it helps make sense of things and stabilize things, yeah, you could say. So a good definition of Binah would be like mathematics, doing equations in your head, very precise thinking. So that's one type of thinking. There's another type of thinking, which is the one that comes from below, from the emotional realm, which is what gets us in trouble. It's called by a couple of names in Hasidic discussions, here Hurim or Machshavos, and it's emotionally driven thinking. So it's something that comes up and then it's in your mind and it dominates. It has no boundaries. It has no way to shut itself off. If you're doing a math calculation, you can stop thinking about it, right? I'll just stop adding the numbers. But when you're thinking about things in that type of thought, or it's actually emotions disguised as thought, coming from that middle realm, that volatile realm, that's it's not the good kind of thinking. So you have the good kind of analytical thinking, which is really from Binah, and you have, somebody's mic is open. Let's be careful here, please. Okay. I don't want to hear, I had the mics open. Somebody opened the mic one night when there was a big family argument. It was kind of interesting. So in order to deal with and better, or hopefully heal this level of emotional thinking, we do need to deal with it, but in order to get above it to the higher level of the intellect of Binah, above that, which is that world of the Neshama, the level of the Neshama. So again, when we're thinking of Jacob's dream, the ladder is the Ruach level with all of those emanations in it that's going up and down. It's very volatile. And above that is where we want to be, the level of Moshe, right? The level of Torah, the level of Binah above that, in order to have a proper understanding. Binah means understanding. So it's the proper understanding of things, of that which is below. We kind of do the same thing at Sukkot, where the Sukkah has you have the lulav and etrog. The lulav actually has 6 parts, which represent the 6 emanations in the middle, the masculine, and the etrog is the feminine, malkut, that come together, right? Bride and the groom, uniting them together under the huppah, that same symbolism that we're talking about here with the bride and the groom. And so the idea here is actually getting a proper understanding of all of this, all of these realms, by being above them. So when you have the sukkah, I'm kind of off the script here, but it's not that far away. When you have the sukkah and the roof, the thatched roof, the reason is not just to see the pretty sky above you. The reason is that you spiritually elevate above all of this other stuff above to that level of Binah, and you're looking back down from above through the roof of the sukkah at the 6th and the 7th ones below, and understanding them correctly. And so you can live your life more in accordance with better understanding of the will of Hashem. That's one of the little secrets of the sukkah. We'll talk more about that in a few months, but we have a wonderful summer ahead of us before we get to that. I still have snow on the ground here. So what triggers this intermediary level of the emotions, which I call midot, what triggers any of the midah, singular, in the middle, is either coming from below the world of the physicality, which is our 5 senses, taste, hearing, touch, something triggers it from down here, or there's something that we either choose to think of, or it enters into our mind and we dwell on it, and it starts intellectually, but then goes right down into the emotions. So either way, either the physical realm of the senses or the intellectual realm above can impact that middle emotional realm and get it going and start all those problems, which is what we said earlier about the ladder in Jacob's dream, that the impetus was either from the bottom, the physical realm, causing the angels to go up, or it was from the heavenly realm responding above, causing the angels to go down. So it's the same concept represented in the ladder imagery. And it's extremely hard to stop this once it gets going, because if you're stuck in that emotional realm, you're trying to solve the problem from within the problem. It's almost impossible. The saying is that the person let's go. The prisoner cannot free himself from jail. So when you're in the prison, you're in the prison. How do you get out? You're in the prison. I'm not talking about breaking out or anything like that. Well, not really. But you need someone on the outside with the key in the door and say, hey, you go, you can get out of the prison now. So we need to, that outside the prison is the level of Bina. It's the level beyond and outside of that realm of the emotional Sephiroth, okay? But we still have to deal with them, but with understanding. So tonight we're at that level of Neshama within Ruach, which is the level of Bina within the six. So we're actually at this level tonight, which is important. Other important thing, and I'm going to hand it over to Luke here in a second. I think we'll take just a short break too, because I've been talking for a bit longer than normal. We'll take like a 2-minute break so people can run a drink. But before I hand it over to Luke, and if you missed it earlier, I take the first half of these with this technical information, and Luke takes over with more of the application and imaginative part and brings us into actual meditation together, which is something we encourage people to develop, get the right information on. There's plenty online. We're doing some of it here. There's books, kosher meditation, because it's all designed on this path and designed to move us according to the path that God has given us to follow. So you're not just sitting out on the beach, closing your eyes and hoping something blows into your head while you hum something. It's actually designed a certain way for us to follow. But the important thing here is that not to be worried or frustrated about dealing with any of these emotional issues. And it can be, this is not a magic pill by any means. This is a continual thing we're going to deal with forever in this world. The important thing to know is that you've got this relationship with God. That's what it is. And then you have this problem area, right? This emotionally driven problem area. And this is how I see it. Yeah. And when you deal with this, and you learn from it and you work on it and it starts to heal and it gets repaired, you now have that new thing, this new aspect of relationship with God that you did not have before and could not have had without going through that. So the barriers you face, they say, what is it? If it don't kill you, you'll do better. You won't get killed here, but you will do better. You'll do better than if it hadn't happened in terms of your own relationship with God. It gives you a whole new dimension. So it's why another reason you shouldn't get like too frustrated or sad or anything like that regarding dealing with these things, even if you fail. Even the failures are just another thing for you to overcome, and another stronger, like a broken bone heals. Was that broken bone heals stronger than before the break kind of idea? I guess I'm not a doctor. I'm just winging this. I play one on TV, but that's the principle here. So I'm going to leave it at that. We are going to post this video and continued videos on the web. We are going to hopefully take some time, which is hard doing it all, to get all of these notes together in a really nice organized fashion and put them on the website too, along with charts and things. So we're going to build this project up really big online and keep it there permanently. And it's going to connect to some other things we're doing. So it's part of an even bigger project. So that's what's going on here. All right, that's it. What don't kill you makes you stronger. Well, what you have to overcome makes you stronger and gives you a unique relationship with your creator that you would not have had without it. So you can be thankful for it once you're through it, or even in the middle of it. Baruch Hashem. All right, so Luke, I think I need to wet my whistle here because I'm talking like a madman tonight, but I knew we had a lot of stuff. So I'm going fast because I knew we had a lot of material here tonight, but it is recorded, right, so people can replay it later and take their time and look at the diagrams and the quotes and all of that. So are we going to take a minute, or did you want to say something first and then take a minute?
Yeah, we can take like a short break just for everybody to kind of get in the mindset. But like, I was going to look through the chat because I didn't see what everybody was saying.
Oh yeah, thank you. I wasn't doing that. I was kind of just going on and on here.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Marybelle, this is a blessing for me, although I have been having some trouble to connect with audio. Personal. Okay, yeah. So at the bottom left, there's, I don't know if you've already connected. Let me see. Let me check. Okay.
While Luke's doing that, that's another part of just getting the technical information. I call it technical, but how things are structured, how they're set up, because you know, faith is faith, yes, but faith with knowledge of how God has set things up is more better. You know what I'm saying? It's still faith, but when you know the system as well as just believe there's something out there, and this is a system that comes from God, from Torah, it's truly helpful and reassuring to know that there is a path, a plan, a timeline, and everything there, and you can hop in at any time. You know, God doesn't play those games. You can jump in at any time. It doesn't matter if you're early or late in the game. That's the parable of the, what was that parable of the workmen, right? They come in, they all get the same at the end. It's like you can jump in anytime. So that's a good thing. Go ahead, Luke. Sorry, I was just killing time there while you were looking for something.
Okay. Marina said it's Wednesday afternoon. I have to leave in 20 minutes. Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, yeah, we're on a weekend.
Stick around for whatever you can, watch, and we understand for sure. Plus, we'll be doing this every week, with Hashem's help. So maybe we'll have another chance.
By the way, folks, at the end of the night, we're going to continue in a minute or two. So if you want to run out and get a drink right now, we're just kind of bantering, getting ready for the next part. But also at the end of Luke's meditation session, if you don't have to get up early, want to stick around, we keep the room open just for general discussion on anything, not only tonight, but anything really in general, kind of obviously hope we keep it Torah related, but so that's like the third unofficial part of the evening. I don't have a bedtime. Luke's bedtime Luke has a bedtime, but it's not too early. So. But anyhow, we'll go, say 60 seconds or so, Luke. We'll just get everybody a chance to run in the product announcement here. Where is it? Where's my product announcement now? What do I got? Gatorade. I shouldn't drink this, but I need the, what do they call it? Electrolytes.
Okay. Yeah. So if anybody wants to ask a question or comment or anything, just go ahead and type it in the chat or take the mic. Joseph said, I definitely need meditation tonight. I just went to the ER here in town due to painful rash in my right leg. Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Hope you feel better.
Yeah, and yeah, shingles. Yeah, I've never had it, but I had some family members had it. And yeah, this is like totally no fun category at all. And yeah, I mean, there's absolutely multiple reasons to do the meditation. First and foremost is just connecting to God at a deeper level, and then from there, there's all kinds of other things in terms of de-stressing and all of that. You can connect to God and be stressed, I suppose. I hope. Otherwise, I'm in trouble because I've had those two go hand in hand for a long time.
Marina said she asked a question at the top of the chat.
Oh, I missed it. Top of the chat. Is it long? Could you type? Where is? I'm scrolling. How far at the top? I'm all the way back to the top. Let me see if I can find it. My little scroll bars. No, okay, wait a minute.
Oh, can you provide examples of witchcraft? Would tarot astrology be considered that?
Well, first, generally speaking, anything that's not specifically okay by the Torah should be examined closely. The Torah, Deuteronomy, when the people going in the land said, God says, whatever those ways of the world are for connecting spiritually, don't do those, right? If you need a higher level connection, you'll get a prophet will show up. That's who you listen to. You have the written Torah, the Torah and sages and all. Because when you start dabbling with anything, I believe, anything like cards or Ouija boards or anything else, that's just not a practice of Torah. Where's Hashem in that? Why would you need that if it's just, and it's one of the ways of the world. And it's kind of like jumping on that ladder there without any idea where you're heading, because you're just throwing yourself into that mixed realm. You have no idea of any help you're getting there, if it's actually help. You're not, because you're not following a prescribed method. So I would definitely tell folks to stay away from that stuff, because it's just not kosher. So
yeah, at the root level, it would probably be described as, intention wise, as you're doing this practice for yourself. It's a self-seeking practice. but not in the
Yeah,
sense where you're seeking higher knowledge. You're more like seeking self-fulfillment,
right. It's
like, you know,
the
these things.
the technical term, which is not well known, is bitul zara, which is a foreign or false unity.
Yeah,
Bitul is the sense of self abnegation, where you connect one with God. It's that fifth level of the soul. We don't really address, because that's not one you work on. You're there, and then you go to the next. You know, it's kind of like on one side of the door than the other. So that's bitul. Zara, like avodah zara, is foreign or false or unapproved. So it would be it would result in something, but it would not. It might even look like the real deal, but it's not, because
right.
the way of Hashem, the way of ascent that we're talking about, is already laid out in the Torah, including things to do and not do. So I'll leave that. So yeah, there's all kinds of people make mistakes in the Torah. King Saul and all of that. Yeah, that was not well thought of what King Saul did. No. It's not like, hey, look, everybody, here's a practice you should put into place. But no, it's not. So. All right. We can talk more about that at the end of the night too, if anybody wants to get more into that. All right, you all set, Luke? I took the screen off, so I may shut mine off briefly while you're doing this too, because I think I'm going to have some, and my mic, because I'm going to have some company showing up here. So, but I'll go back on when you're done, and we will continue after. I'm going to mute myself here. I'll be listening. I'll jump in when you need me.
All right, cool. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay. Type a Y in the chat. Cool. Okay. Good. All right. So before we start, just kind of get into a comfortable position. Uncross your arms and your legs. Get everything out of your hands. And you can do this with your eyes open. So this will be a lighter, quote unquote, meditation. And we'll get into a deeper meditation later on. But for right now, we're gonna bring some of the concepts back that we were going through last time with the midot, with the, observing our emotions and creating that space between us and the midah, the identification with it. So just go ahead and try to relax your body a little bit, relax your face, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your back and your abdomen, your pelvis, your legs, your ankles, your toes, and just kind of feel the connection between you and the bed you're laying on or the chair you're sitting in. Maybe the ground under your feet if you're sitting in a chair. Just notice that there is a shift there. If anyone noticed a shift, type a Y into the chat. Suddenly your attention is in your thoughts, and then it shifts down into observing the connection. Nobody noticed it. So let's try it again. So notice the connection between your body and the inanimate object that you're laying on or sitting in, the ground underneath your feet. And notice within, there's a shift. All of your attention goes to the sensation rather than your thoughts. Yes. So that's a quick trick you can try whenever you're actually, you can't escape your thoughts and you're bombarded by this noise in your head. So you become aware of the breathing and the harmonious functioning of the body. So let's go ahead and do that. Just become aware of the breath. Don't try to change the breath, just observe it. It'll deepen on its own, so it's okay. An important Torah to remember is Rabbi Nachman said that the Israelites, when they were enslaved in Egypt, they were in the state of Chotzer Ruach, constricted consciousness. And this showed up in their breath because their breath was short. It was a shortened breath, constricted consciousness. And so anytime you are, in a state of worry or anxiety, we're having that short breath. And this is connected to our lack of emunah and bitak, and our faith and trust in Hashem. So the deeper that we grow in emunah and trust, the deeper our breath gets. And just naturally, doing daily normal things, we notice that our breathing is very slow and deep. So just take a minute, feel the connection between you, the bed, or the chair. Become aware of your breath, the harmonious functioning of the body. It's all happening on its own. We don't have to do anything. Now, if there's something that's going on in your life, it generates some kind of internal response in our emotions. And one way it could happen is through external stimuli, right? The situation that you're in. So maybe bring up the number one situation that you're really struggling with right now. And then behind that situation, within your emotions, just become aware of that. Which emotion is most present? Anxiety, confusion, doubt, maybe even a good emotion, love, awe, whatever you're feeling. And just become aware of that. Now, when you think of the situation, you have this emotional response. So if you can, without trying to make it happen, just become aware of what color you can associate with this emotion. Again, don't try to associate anything, just whatever pops up first, whatever color pops up first behind this emotion, and then type that color into the chat. It can be any color or a mix of colors, no color, pink, good, Scott, violet, purple, good, blackish brown. And it can be any color, doesn't matter. You don't have to try to make it a color, just whatever color pops up. Reddish orange, good, good. So this is creating some space between you and that emotion now. And we'll step a little further back and let's try to rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. So on a scale from 1 to 10, what is the intensity level that you feel this emotion? Just type that number into the chat. Any number from 1 to 10. 5, good. 6. So you see the color and you feel the emotion, and you see above the color the rating of it. Like, what's the intensity? 9. And just observe that. Don't get caught up in it. 1, good. Don't try to judge it. Don't try to engage your emotions at all. Just observe it. We're just witnessing all of this happen. An example would be like if you're sitting on a park bench and you're watching ducks kind of float on the water. The same thing's happening here. Only it's an internal observation. We're observing the emotional response to the external stimuli. We've given it a color, given it a rating. So we've created a little bit of space. We're not so identified with it anymore. You notice there's a little bit of release there. Just a little bit. You're able to kind of step back away from the emotion and just observe it. So now we're going to go to a little higher level, and we're going to try to see what thoughts, what beliefs, what memories are evolving around this emotion. So it has its color, has its rating. So just to observe that and then step a little further back and just watch the thoughts that are associated with it, any memories that pop up, any imagery. We're just watching it. Don't try to follow anything in particular. Don't try to judge anything. It's all there. Just allow it to be there. So maybe you're experiencing a negative emotion. That's fine. Just allow yourself to feel it. You don't have to get caught up in it. You can just allow it to be. The example I used last time was, if you encounter 2 kids or 1 kid or however many kids come up in a supermarket and they're lost and they just want to find their way back to their parents, to the source, we should look at our thoughts and emotions the same exact way, because within all of those, the negative ones especially, there is a divine spark that's wanting to be released and reconnected back to the source, to return back to the source. So with our rachamim, with our compassionate awareness, we surround this emotion and we surround the thoughts and beliefs. It's all just arising within our awareness. So now we're stepping back a little further and we feel a little bit more space between us, the thoughts and emotions, between us, thoughts and emotions in our environment. And just try to observe all of this at once. The sensation of the connection between you and the chair or the bed. the breathing and harmonious functioning of the body, the emotion, the thought, imagery, beliefs, and notice you are not those things because you're the one who is observing them. You're observing them from a place a little further back. And just try to sink into that place, into that center around which everything else revolves. Allow your awareness to expand into your environment. Become aware of any sensations, any sense perceptions, the space around us. All of this arises in the screen of our awareness, field of consciousness. Some of these feelings, some of these thought patterns have been there for a long time. Maybe they've been there since we were little kids. And they've been there because we haven't released them. We're identified with them. Not on a conscious level, but an unconscious level. So now we're becoming aware of that. And in the light of this awareness, in this compassionate awareness, these things can start to release. They can be elevated. And the one who is aware of all this, the presence that's aware of the sensations, the sounds, smells, the emotions, the thoughts, imagery, beliefs. In accessing this awareness, we're actually rising up and looking down with an objective inner vision. That might sound familiar if you've read a lot of Torah. Maybe for a while you didn't really understand what it was, but now you're feeling it, you're experiencing it. So that aware, still, silent, open presence has been there for a long time, since you can remember. If you think about it, bring up a certain memory of your childhood, that same aware presence was there behind, behind the thoughts and the emotions associated with that particular memory. That part of you doesn't change. Just get a sense of this unchanging presence. This is the Ani, the I. We can actually permute the letters of Ani to Ayin, and this is the level of nothingness. So this is the I that we attach to Ein Sof, to the infinite. It's through accessing this awareness that it's the gate to higher consciousness. So in the language of Kabbalah, this would be Da'at, the unitive knowledge and awareness of the divine. This is the real you, the one who is aware of everything, who is unchanging, who is unaffected by any emotions or thoughts or situations. It's all the same to this aware, open, still, alert presence. The real you is the aware presence in the center, and everything else, including thoughts and emotions, are external. And they're all revolving around this constant awareness, this unchanging awareness at the center of your being. You could also call it the periphery of our consciousness. You notice whenever you're very centered or you're in a flow state, there's a little bit of space between you and the thoughts or the emotions, the situations. They're all just kind of on the periphery. Just notice the still. By the way, this place that we're accessing is already silent and still. We don't have to try to make it that. That's what it is. So anytime we access this awareness, we're accessing a place of silence and stillness. And we're that much closer to Hashem, who is in absolute rest, absolute stillness. Just notice the space between you and the thoughts and emotions, sense perceptions, between Bain, Bina. Our capacity to observe, be present, listen deeply. And by listening deeply, I mean when you're listening to someone without thinking the next thought that you're going to say. So this is the way in our Hitbodedut that we should approach Hashem. We should pour out our hearts and then access that place of deep listening or inner listening. So this place, our capacity to observe, be present, listen deeply, and surrender is rooted in our emunah. And emunah is our perception of the felt presence of Hashem and his divine providence. Emunah is the ultimate unification. It's the superconscious source. And at a lower degree, we can get a sense of this higher source. But the deeper we go and the more connections we make, the greater this is felt. And this feeling is called hakara or hargasha. It's the felt sense recognition of Hashem's presence and divine providence. So, with your eyes open, just try to hold this state. With everything that's been said, you can go ahead and let all that go. Just sink into this still, quiet presence. This awareness that sees all of the thoughts, all of the emotions, sense perceptions, the environment. Just try to hold this space. And then next week, we'll talk about holding space for others. But in holding space, we're fully present, fully here now. We're feeling what we're feeling. We're allowing these thoughts that are coming up from the feeling to be there as well. We're not trying to make them go away. We're not trying to push them aside. We're recognizing the divine within them as well. And just go ahead and return to your breathing, the harmonious functioning of the body, the sensation of the chair underneath you, or the bed, maybe the ground underneath your feet, any sounds in the environment. Feel the space around you. And try to bring this back with you and hold it, so that anytime that you're doing anything, you're at work, you're washing dishes, you're driving your car, you're going somewhere, you're talking with somebody, you can be in this state. And you can always be in a state observing your thoughts and emotions and not allowing them to take you over. Because that's exactly what the Yetzer Hara tries to do. I mean, that's its job. And it's really good at it. So with this in mind, you can go ahead and relax and just let your mind do whatever you want to do. We'll go into the other meditation here in just a minute, but I wanted to give you a break. And yeah, so just chill for a minute. If anybody has any questions or comments about that, maybe any insights, anything you want to say, go ahead and say it. So one question I'll ask is, were you able to enter into that place of awareness where there was space between you and the thoughts and the sense perceptions? So if you did enter that space, just type a Y in the chat. Or if you care to elaborate on it, go ahead, take the mic. Baruch Hashem. And if you didn't, let me know as well. That's equally as important. Good. And it was difficult. The shingle was freaking sorry. Yeah, understandable. So even with that, when you're in this space, you can allow everything to be, even the physical pain. So like we did with the thoughts and the emotions, the rachamim, the compassionate awareness, we can actually access this state and direct this compassionate awareness around whatever sensation, whatever pain we're having. And that can also allow healing. We can draw down the healing light, and that can actually help you. Can help you heal pain or relief. And if not that, then there is a release from being totally trapped in it, totally consumed by it, you know. And the same goes with any situation, any life situation that you're in. You can always enter this state and be able to observe what's going on in your inner world, because we often react without this awareness of our emotions, without this awareness of our thoughts. But if we're actually able to access this place we can determine whether what we're going to say or how we're going to react is a good thing, right? We don't want to react negatively, because then we get caught up in what the Yetzer Hara wants us to do. All I experienced was a flood of tension, stress, anger, and anxiety. I just cried and cried. That's okay. That's over a release. That's part of meditation as well. So what happened was definitely what needed to happen. So even with that, with those emotions and feeling that pain and sadness, just allow it, because it's in there until you let it out. So you can enter into this space of awareness and allow all these things to be. Just sit in a quiet place, ask Hashem to help you. They help me release this, or if it's something that you've given me for a purpose, help me learn how to elevate it. How can I use it for you, Hashem? And if you have to cry more, cry more. It's all part of the release. Sometimes whenever we access this place of awareness, there is an emotional release. Sometimes, somebody's been holding it in for a really long time, and suddenly they become aware of these things. And once you step back into that awareness, all of these things that we weren't aware of become, we become conscious of those things. And a common experience is we often think that we're getting worse when we're actually getting better, because now we have this awareness of the problem, where before we didn't have the awareness, but the problem was there. You know what I mean? So like now that we have this awareness, we think that, oh, I've actually gotten worse. Why this isn't helping, And that's also the job of the Yetzer Hara. So we have to observe that as well. But allow everything, because it's all coming from Hashem. It all has a purpose. And whenever we get caught up in, basically we have this, we have this fight with Hashem, because everything that's happening right now is his will. So whenever we desire something other than his will, we have an emotional struggle, because we want something different than right now. So the present moment, the only moment where we can connect with Hashem, becomes an obstacle. So when we can be present with Hashem and allow all of this he wants us to feel, all that he wants us to see, we can remain connected with him. And this is a healing process. But as long as we're not present with him, it can't be a healing process. We can't survive emotionally if we can't access the present moment. But Kim, you'll definitely be in my prayers. And I hope you feel better soon. Joseph said, I did experience distress and the feeling of rejection as well. Recently seeing, hearing hatred towards people who want to do good and share. Yeah, that's a common experience. And it's okay to feel these emotions. And that's why Hashem brought you here, so you can learn this and apply it to the situation, right? So you can access this place of awareness where we're close to Hashem. And this helps you become aware of your thoughts and emotions and your behavior. So then we can learn to attune those things and direct them towards, with the right intention behind it, towards Devakut, right? Towards making these unifications. Because when we become attuned to each level of the soul, we study about it, so then we desire it, and that pulls us up to that level. we desire these qualities over our egoistic desires. And this pulls us up. This force of pulling is Mashiach, the force of correction. So that's why it's important to study Kabbalah and study the higher levels as well, not just the level you're on, because like Tovia said, a prisoner can't free himself. So we have to rise up to a higher level in order to look down on our current circumstance. So we can't correct the level while we're on it. That's a principle of Kabbalah. So we have to rise above the ego, above this identification with the thoughts and emotions, sense perceptions, and environment, situation, people, place, things, you know. We have to rise above and be able to look down on this. In the Sefer Yetzirah, this inner vision is called Safiya. And it's basically referring to the same concept, the same principle of accessing this awareness and being able to rise up and look down. So we're looking down or to the side of our emotions and our thoughts, our beliefs, imagination, whatever. Does anybody else have any questions or anything before we start the other one? All right. So we'll go ahead and begin if nobody has any questions or anything. So this time we're going to close our eyes. We're going to kind of settle back into that state. So without me telling you what to do, go ahead and try to get back there. We can review in just a second, but just show yourself that you can get back there. Relaxing the face, the neck, shoulders, the arms, the back and abdomen, legs, ankles, toes. Feeling the chair, the bed underneath us, ground under our feet, the air around us, any noises, any smells. Just allow everything to be there. Just become aware of the breathing and the harmonious functioning of the body. Notice that this breath, inhale with the intention that this breath is coming from Hashem. As he exhales, you inhale. As you exhale, he inhales. Just try to feel this for a moment. It's running and returning. Expanding and contracting. As we exhale, we get closer. And as we inhale, we come back. So before we begin, I'm going to say, we hereby bond our consciousness with the tzaddikim of the past and the present generations. in order to do this mitzvah meditation for the sake of the unification of the Holy One, blessed be He, and His Shekinah, in awe and in love and in awe, to unify the name Yod-He and Vav-He by means of He who is hidden and concealed in the name of all Israel. Amen. So try to hold that state that we're working on. Sink back into this awareness. It's aware of all the thoughts and emotions and sense perceptions, aware of all the sounds in your environment, the feeling of the expanse of the environment. And as you're in this state with your eyes closed, just envision light all around you, which is filled with a presence of unconditional love and understanding. Get a sense in this light of rising up to a higher level. There's a lifting sensation. And you arrive at the entrance of a cave. So you take a step in and you feel the dampness of the cave. You hear water dripping in the distance. You take another step. You feel the coolness of the rocks and the air around us. Step again. Take another step. You still hear the water dripping in the distance. Coolness and dampness of the cave. You put your hand on the rock. You take another step. You feel the rock. It's cool to the touch. You take another step. There's water between each step, so be careful. And take another step. Take one more step. You hear the dripping off in the distance. Take one more step. And now we're at the end of the cave. And begin to see a light. Take one more step forward. Suddenly, a voice says, Ayeka, where are you? And suddenly you're in a beautiful garden filled with lush greenery, animals, people all around. You notice a light emanating from them. You turn to your right. And you see a tzaddikim seated at a table studying Torah. So right now, take a moment and envision a tzaddik, a teacher that you feel very connected to. And in your intent, bind your consciousness with his. Envision him at this table. Can you feel the grass underneath your feet? Can you feel the wind and the warm sunshine? Maybe some smells of flowers. You feel a palpable presence of love, light, and joy. The presence of Hashem, which we can perceive in the state as the essence of everything that we see. There's light emanating from all of it. We feel a warm, loving embrace surrounding us. Whatever problems we have, whatever troubles, whatever negative thoughts just melt away. You notice a smile on your face as you realize you're in the presence of the King. You feel this love and understanding being transmitted and communicated to you. Just take a moment and notice the change in your emotions. Notice the change in your thoughts that revolve around these emotions. And step back into the awareness that sees all of this. You look up and see a bright light emanating from above. In its midst, we see the divine name, Yud-He and Vav-He. From this name, emanating from this name, we feel Hashem's desire for us to enjoy and feel pleasure in the light of His presence. And just rest in this presence for a moment, in this warm, loving embrace where everything melts away but unconditional love. And take this opportunity to say a prayer to Hashem, whether in your heart or out loud. Whatever you feel moved to do, you're in the presence of the King. Show Him your gratitude and your confidence in Him, that you know He will bring you through anything. And He is right there with you all the time. He will never leave you. He's with you right now. He was there before you were born. He'll be there after you die. Feel the love and awe and the expanse of His greatness. And ask Him to bestow wisdom and understanding and da'at, unitive knowledge and awareness, that you can bring back with you to the lower world. Ask Him how to teach you to become a vessel for His light in this world, in order to bestow to others with the same intention that He has towards us. But now it's time to go back. We turned around and stepped into the cave. Take another step, going back into darkness. We hear the water dripping off in the distance. We feel the cool rocks in the cave under our feet and our hands. We take another step, another step. We hear running water off in the distance. Take another step. One more step. Notice that with you, you're carrying something back through this darkness. Take one more step. Something has changed. Take another step. You're bringing back something that you can use for the present situation that you're in. Take one more step. You can see the light surrounding us. We get a sense of lowering back down. Suddenly we become aware of our body, these sense perceptions, the sensation of the chair bed underneath us, the breath and harmonious functioning of the body. But now we can feel this radiant presence all around us. It's flowing through us and around us. This unconditional love and light, and joy. And we're going to bring this back with us. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And just try to hold that. Just with your eyes open, go ahead and stretch, get a sip of your drink or take a bite of your snack or whatever you got there. Can you feel the impression that's left? So we're rising up to a higher level and we're coming back with an impression of holiness. This is the running and returning that we learned last week. But now we're able to access a higher level. And next week we'll go a little bit higher. All right, so does anybody have any questions? Something they want to say about the meditation? Do you have any interesting experiences? Or maybe something that you want to say about the difference between how you feel now from how you felt before? Whatever you want to say. You can take the mic or type it in the chat. Baruch Hashem. That's great, Scott. And you can do this on your own. It's you know, a lot easier when you have a guide, but once you actually learn the steps and you learn basically where to go on the map and how to get back, you can do it on your own. Although it
Hey,
is better. Hey.
it's Joseph or Joseph. Anyway, you know, that was totally different than the first meditation that we did. So the first time I went in, I experienced that reddish orange color, and I've been going through a lot of stress, hence the shingles and all that. And so the intensity was up there this evening. And then when we went back and we went to this other meditation, the colors were so much more different. They were like a pastel yellow and some white, and there was more peace. And then being able to share that breath with the Almighty, you know, and I actually got to feel that. And then I could literally see and like smell the smells of the dankness of the cave, and I could actually hear all of that. And then in the garden there was a man, and he was wearing a red robe, and he had a hood on it. It was like a cloak type, hooded robe type thing.
Wow.
He was sitting there, and he had a Torah scroll out in front of him, and he had a big, huge, white, wavy beard, and he had dark eyes, and he had a tan complexion, you know, like a dark tan complexion. And I don't know which one it was. I don't know if it was Moshe or Rabbeinu, or if it was, you know,
Could be
the other Nevi'im, but he looked up at me and he smiled and motioned for me to come over and sit with him. And so I did.
Yeah. Baruch Hashem.
Dude, it was really, really cool, and totally got to experience Hashem there too. And just, I don't know, it was all three of us were just sitting there and not saying anything, just sitting there and just enjoying each other's presence. So it was really neat to be able to get to that. I needed that space of calm, that space of peace. It was really awesome.
I think Luke's still with us. I'm not sure, but if you folks want to stick around too, if you're, if and when, I'm not if and when we're done this particular phase in a moment or two, you can stick around after to discuss whatever else you want to talk about, whatever's going on. And I think Luke got booted out of here. Should we let him back in? We'll have to take a vote. Let's see here. Is he here? No, he's coming back in. He just texted me saying he's coming back in. So as soon as I see him, he must have got booted. All right. So yeah, this is something that isn't like oh yeah, we did this and I feel better or I don't feel better. You know, I'm sure you already know that. This is something that, like I said, it's all new to us. We're developing this as we go along, and it's something that we're all going to you know, whenever you can come here, and we're going to keep working on this, learning more things and putting more of the guided meditations in practice and more questions and answers. And we're developing a website to put not only the videos on, but we're going to have links to a lot of, you know, free resources that are kosher resources out on the internet. Plus, you know, for those people who are able to, we may have some links just to books on there that we have personally read and believe would be good and that kind of stuff. So we're going to develop a little meditation world or center on a website. And, you know, this will be a permanent project. You know, we may do this for 4 months here and then get away from the Zoom rooms a little bit till another time in the year, but, you know, or maybe have occasional ones for different reasons, for specific topics or things. but we're looking to do more things in general. So we're building a whole like little meditation world for friends on Facebook is part of a bigger scheme too, that will include, you know, Torah study and other things too, that and maybe we may even have a Zoom room one night to just talk about things that are going on in the world around us from a different perspective, you know, not from this perspective of the news headlines, but at a deeper level. You know, we might do something like that. Just a lot of things that interconnect. So we're looking to do that. But anyhow, Luke's back in, so I'll hand it back off to him so he can conclude this part, and then stick around if you can, and we can all schmooze some more afterwards. Welcome back.
Yeah, I was a dummy and forgot to plug my phone in and it died, but I'm back. But yeah, so I left off, Joseph was saying that he experienced a really intense experience and then got to sit down with the Tzaddikim and everything. That's pretty awesome. I noticed before I left, I was checking the chat, and I noticed Soteria said that it was a bit difficult for her, but she really connected whenever she felt the breath of Hashem, that back and forth, you know. So if you want to share any more, Soteria, go ahead. Or if you want to type in the chat or keep it to yourself, it's all good. But I was just kind of interested to see like what else you experienced.
Also, Luke, interesting comment that we'll let Soteria, if she wants to talk, go ahead. But afterwards, Kim made an interesting comment in the chat too, which I can really relate to Kim's comments a lot. It's like having for me, it's like having a desire for something I know is possible or other people experience or it's out there, and then just not feeling it. Just like, you know, there's just so much going on, and it's just, you want it to happen, but you're just stuck. And that can be from a lot of things. From my personal life, it's like physical issues, like, you know, medical issues and things like that just get in the way. Or sometimes it's family, you know, for me too, big time. It's just amazing how these things in this world can just totally derail what we feel we want and know is out there. And that's like Luke says, it's not being silly when he says it's okay. That's okay too. It really is. It's all part of a process. You gotta, is that what you say, Luke? Trust the process, right? Trust the process, because it's from Hashem. And yes, it's difficult, but every one of these lousy, stinking difficulties that we run into along the way is just a thing that is gonna, you know, eventually, you know, be repaired eventually. And when it is, it's going to, you know, give you something that you didn't have before and no one else has. It's between you and God. So, you know, you got to keep your eye on that prize as you do the work, and the work can be a real pain in the tuchus sometimes at many levels, physically, emotionally, and mentally, or all of the above. It really can. It can be overwhelming sometimes. And the more, you know, the more you feel that stuff, that just shows you how strong your desire is. And that's a good thing, which means your potential is greater than the average person, shall we say.
Yeah. For some reason I can't see.
It's not the real you talking, right? When you feel that rejection, all those other things, that's that not real you. That's saying that.
That's that consciousness that's kind of, it's kind of mired in the thoughts, you know, not necessarily conscious thoughts, but you know, the meta generated thought patterns, you know.
Yeah, this is the real deal, folks. I'm not because we're doing it, just saying in general, the Torah-based meditation is the real deal. It's connecting in the most intimate, deepest way. It's a deeper level of just prayer. You know, you're really seeking to connect with Hashem, and it's there for us. And it's just these barriers of this world. I always make the matrix analogies. We're in this world and everything's concealed. Everything looks like it's real, but it's not. And it's just overwhelms us every moment of every day in our personal lives. And when we turn on the news to think about our future, our children's future, you know, it's just like everything is just, but, you know, we know where it's going to end up, and we know where we can end up. So that's why emunah, faith, is so important, but it's faith, not just like a wishful thinking. It's faith based on understanding the structure, how to navigate the structure, and all of those things that God has actually given us. So, you we have a good plan. We just got to keep working on it. And we are including every fourth week, and then the whole fourth month of May, we're including the communal or community interrelational aspect to things between us all. So next week, be ready. We're going to focus a lot more on things, not just between you and God or me and God, but between all of us together, and all of us together with Hashem. We do that every fourth week at the level of Chaya.
Yeah, we'll definitely, we'll build on the foundation from, the past few weeks. And so it'll be, some of it will be familiar, and then some of it won't, But I think overall, if you were here for the level of Chaya of Nefesh meditation and presentation, then you'll probably, have a similar sensation whenever we do this meditation. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because whenever we can get to that place of Chaya, our Neshama becomes informed from that level. So we no longer feel like isolated from the collective, and we can connect to others through our intention, to directing our consciousness towards others, and learning to open our hearts towards others. And we become a vessel for the Shefa to flow down through us and outward towards others. And this is part of the process of bestowal, where we reach a state that we can bring this holiness into the world. And it's not just for the tzaddikim, like they're really good at it, but anybody can get to this level. So it's important that we at least try. And so in the beginning, all we have to do is direct our intention towards that, and our desire and our yearning towards that, and it will pull us up. Like I was talking about earlier, we studied the different levels of Torah, or different levels of the worlds and Sephirot and Kabbalah, and the qualities associated with each one. And as we study, we start to yearn for those qualities and desire those qualities. And this implies distance, desire implies distance, where love is the unification. So that's the sensation of unification. It's like if the divine name, which is equivalent to numerically to 26, if we break that in half, we have Ahava and Echad, which is 13, 13, 26. So love is the sensation of that unification with Hashem. But we do that, we learn to attune our intentions towards, and our desire and our, directed consciousness towards those levels. And that's how we get there. And anybody can get there as long as they put in the work.
I'd like to share something.
Yeah.
So I can never say that I ever tried to meditate before. I'll listen to worship music, and I mean, I do get to a higher state. I feel myself. I feel as if my spirit is really like elevating from my body. And I always cry. But the most weirdest experience I've had while I was awake was I had surgery, came home after that surgery, and then I got really sick. I couldn't eat. And I haven't calculated the days yet, but I'm almost sure it was 40 days altogether from the time that started. I had bites to eat in the meantime, right? But I had nothing substantial. I even stopped drinking at one point.
Wow.
So I told Hashem, okay, we're here where we are. Obviously, you want me to fast. So I'm going to turn this to fasting and prayer. I'm going to use it for the good, because I didn't know what was happening in the meantime.
Right.
So I go to the hospital, they let me come back home. They just gave me some fluids. I was dehydrated. A week later, I go back. They admitted me. I ended up staying 5 days.
Mm.
When we were in the emergency room, all I could do was, my husband was sitting next to me, but all I can do was just internally call on Hashem. I started getting scared at that point. Now, even before the surgery, I had a sense of peace. I knew Hashem would be with me, bring me through. I wasn't scared at all. But now all of a sudden I was sitting in the ER and I was scared. And all I could do is just keep saying his name over and over again. And all of a sudden, I felt these two angels on each side of me. And they were as tall, I mean, up to the sky.
Baruch
I
Hashem.
felt them so much that I seen them.
Yeah.
And they were like more gold, and I seen a little beige, but they were like these gold colored angels.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I felt a sense of shalom come over me. I told my husband, and he got a little nervous. He was like, "Oh my God, what are you trying to tell me? You're gonna die?" And I said, "No, I'm at peace. My shalom has been restored." Well, they
Baruch
admitted me in the hospital, and I started having conversations with Hashem. I wasn't far from home, only 10 minutes. But throughout the night, throughout the day, I was having conversations, and I wasn't mad at him. I don't think I've ever been mad at him, but my love started growing for him even more. And how I would manage him, like this area would expand even more. And now that I'm thinking back on it, it was actually his love, the love I was feeling his love, and it was expanding within me and growing within me.
Baruch Hashem.
And it brought me to such a state of teshuva that
Yeah.
I have never done before. And I can't even describe it. I cried and cried and cried. I still do. I talk to my husband sometimes and I tell him, like, you know, what happened in the hospital and the experiences I had. And he's like, "You're not crying, are you?" But it's all the years that I turned away, literally. I mean, little by little, like one wrong thing I did, you know, I'm an inch away, then I'm 10 feet away, and all along he's there. So now I had to turn back around in that same path and come back to him. But he did it almost instantly.
Yeah.
And he asked me to do something over 12 years ago. And I didn't do it. Although now I see that, you know, everything comes in its time. I wasn't even actually prepared to do what he told me to do. But the fact that I didn't obey him to start walking on that path, to get to that place, to do what he was asking me to do. And I just feel like my life went kind of downhill at that point because I disobeyed him.
Yeah.
But just like that, in an instant, I'm like, okay. It wasn't like I even said that. I'm like, I'm not willing and dealing with you, or you know, trying to say, you know, if you make me well. If you make me well or not, I'm still going to do this. And I have developed such a closeness, and I feel him so deeply now that I've ever did in my entire life. And I think that was combined possibly with the fasting and how I internalized and viewed what was going on with me.
Right. Yeah.
And then I had everybody's prayers. I had, you know, everybody from our Facebook friends and our group. My husband was praying, my family was praying, and I don't know what I saw. I can't explain it in words. I just feel it.
Yeah.
And maybe one day I can explain it. I
Wow.
wasn't able to get in that meditative state tonight.
Hmm.
A little bit when you said about the grass and the tzaddikim.
Yeah.
Okay, I instantly gravitated to my tzaddik.
Hmm.
But I went back to that feeling of when I saw those two angels and what happened to me in that hospital. And then I felt that unconditional love. And before that, when you said about exchanging breath, I even thought about that in the hospital. I said, it's your breath that I'm
Yeah.
breathing. I wouldn't be breathing right now if it wasn't you continually giving me your breath.
Right.
So when you said that, I instantly started crying. So that was my experience.
Wow,
And
that
I
was great.
just wanted to share it with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
I'm so happy that I just came and joined and heard that story.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I have a similar, I relate to it very well, and it surely is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
you said something really interesting towards the end of your story, Soteria. You said that you couldn't really describe it, but it was more like a feeling. And so that's exactly what the spiritual worlds feel like. Or that's how we experience them, is through our feelings. So we feel like an elevated emotion, and maybe like we get some kind of visual imagery, or some thought behind it that's really powerful. And these are all elevated, we rise up in the spiritual world, and there's, warring between opposing desires and different thoughts and emotions. But the higher we get, the more we break through that barrier, and we start to experience that unconditional love that you were talking about. And that sensation of expanding, of that place expanding, like you're talking about. So that's all part of rising up in the spiritual world. So you definitely, even without, you said that you haven't really tried to meditate or anything, but you've learned to access that place, and it's okay. It's okay if tonight it didn't work out, that's all part of the process. And some of us have deeper struggles to overcome, and they're a lot harder emotionally to get through and to step back from, because they're so much a part of our lives, and so we have a hard time letting them go. Of course, we can entertain the idea of stepping back and just observing it, but once it gets to the point of surrendering it to Hashem, we have a really difficult time, because it's so much, we feel that it's so much a part of us, and that's okay. I mean, that's part of the process, and everybody goes through a different process, and it's all with purpose. That's what I've learned from my experience, from observing other people and observing my teachers and what they've gone through. And it's just, it's different for everybody. Like, you have experienced a higher level of consciousness, so you have that impression, and anytime we access that place and we can actually bring that impression back, we can always go back and re-access that. We can always tap into that anytime we really direct our kavanah towards that, and our kavanah with the intent of, unification with Hashem for the sake of others, to love our neighbors, ourselves, but I mean, at first it might not feel intense. Like, it'll feel, you'll get a subtle change, a subtle shift, and that just comes with learning to direct your consciousness and holding it there. And over time, that Kabbalah becomes like a vehicle for the Veku, and it kind of slingshots you into that state. And sometimes it's slower, but that's okay because it's all part of the process. And Hashem is bringing you to that place. He's already brought you there, but he's working with you again, And I still, the thing is, like, a lot of people think that all of these negative emotions and struggle and dealing with pain and negative thoughts, that makes you unspiritual. But that is not at all true. And it's usually people who are closer to the spiritual worlds who experience more pain and suffering and emotional struggle and turmoil in their lives, And it's just,
The Bible is full of those experiences.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, we often have that unconscious notion, that like you can't be spiritual and be angry, or you can't be spiritual and be sad, or you can't be spiritual and, be in so much pain that you can't connect, I mean, all of that's false, because we're always connected to Hashem, always. The connection is never left. It was there before we were born. It'll be there after we die. It's there now. And all we have to
He's
do,
your very breath.
right, exactly. All we have to do is like tune our awareness, like we're dialing in a radio station into that connection. And we have to do it gradually, a lot of the time, just at first people lose, the drive to do it and the focus because they're not experiencing what they want to experience. But the truth is, the more we desire the experience rather than have the intention to connect with Hashem for the sake of the unification of the Holy One and his Shekinah, like all the souls of Israel uniting and all of those things. If we desire the spiritual experience over that, when we start to think that because I'm not having a spiritual experience, that means I'm not connecting, we lose the focus and the correct intention. So we always have to keep that in mind, no matter what happens in our practice and no matter how long it takes. We have to just continuously keep doing it, keep up with the practice. And you don't have to go and sit down, in the middle of the floor and set a certain time for 30 minutes every day. I mean, you can do this anytime, anywhere, as long as you have to develop the knack, the skill of accessing this awareness. And then as soon as you do, you start to see that all of these different concepts about meditation, you understand them. Like they're no longer something that's outside over here. Like it's something within your experience, So it's like I said, it's different for everybody, but I feel like it all has purpose. Struggle especially, because without the struggle the desire wouldn't build as much as it does, So in the struggle, there's so much purpose, and it's very hard to see because we're in so much pain and suffering. But if we can access that place of awareness, we can step back and allow that space to be there, so we can observe it with the intention to connect with Hashem, because it's all emanating from him. All of our desires, our thoughts, our emotions, our situations, all the people in our lives, all the things we have to go through, like all of this is coming from Hashem. And once we can learn to see that, we're basically becoming a tiny dot where everything is moving through us and around us by Hashem, right? He's moving everything around us and within us. And we're just like this tiny little dot observing it all happen. And this is basically like the focal point of consciousness, but really there's only one consciousness. And there's like little, if you can, an image right now would be like little dots all over the earth and then lines connecting all the dots. And that would be like the Neshama level, where you're informed from the level of Chaya, you're accessing that awareness and you can feel a more expansive state. But when you enter the level Kaya, that completely dissolves. There's no more points and lines. There's only connection, and you're absorbed into it. And sometimes we can't really stay there for a very long time. Rabbi Nachman says that, when we enter that state, we're totally encompassed in our source, and we enter the state of, and no man knows, we actually lose self-awareness. So this is the difference between Da'at and Da'at Tecton and Da'at Elyon. So Da'at Tecton is like this awareness, awareness of our thoughts and emotions, and being able to steer our thoughts and emotions wherever we want, and being aware of Hashem's presence and divine providence, and yeah, so Da'at Elyon would be this awareness of the eye, of self-awareness, merging with the higher awareness, to where we kind of just melt into Hashem and this unity and this sensation of unconditional love. And sometimes we stay there for a little long time. But everyone, good night, Soteria. Everyone,
No, I'm not
experience-
leaving. I was saying good night to Mary.
Oh, okay. But everyone experiences it differently. And some of us are able to stay there longer, but a lot of the masters tell us not to go there for very long, because we can actually die that way. So it's dangerous to access these higher levels with the wrong intention, right? You just want to stay there because it's blissful and you want to leave everything behind. So we can't do that with that intention. So we have to enter that state with the intention of accessing that connection with Hashem, that holiness, that Kedusha, and bringing down that energetic connecting energy, that impression back into our lives in order to internalize it, so that it can flow outward from us to others. And this is how we unify all the souls of Israel